But about 40% of our agricultural crop also leaves the market here and goes international. I don't know if you know, one of our distilleries here makes about 100 million gallons of vodka that heads off to the East European bloc. And so our corn that grows in our marketplace gets converted into something very value added and then is distributed 15,000 miles away. It's a rapid, crowded, and somewhat intolerant new place that we're in. And we seem to be adapting very well to these conditions, being able to understand what the new innovations are and what the new small business and mid-sized business mindset is, and in fact what all of us have as a new role in this. So I'm excited about the future. I'm eager to see what my daughter is going to do and my son is going to do. And just as a concluding remark, I took my daughter to, my wife and I took my daughter to Cirque du Soleil. She's an artsy type. She was very impressed by this. And she said, you know, they have technology and they have art. It's great communication. It's a super business. I think I want to join the circus. And we'll see how that all works out. But the circus today is not what it was in yesteryear. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Jim. We have two tasks here for the panelists. One is question and answers, and I received some questions from the audience for each of the panelists. And then afterwards, Lee Hall will come up and they will be involved in aiding him in selecting the door prizes for the winners. The first question is to Karen. Karen Jensen, over the next 10 years, the questionnaire wants to know, what changes do you see within the field of engineering and architecture, and how will this affect the current and future workforce?
Over the next 10 years, I see technology continuing to be a very important part of what happens with engineering and architecture. And the skill sets that are needed for that will continue to be developed, not just post-secondary, but along the way. So I see that being the biggest dramatic shift. The technology, they say in 2013 that the greatest access to the internet will actually be over mobile devices, and that's just talking in 2013. So I think that will continue to be a dramatic factor for us.
All right, thank you, Karen. And Kelly Boyd. Kelly, the question here is, to what extent has the nature of work changed during the past 5 years for Caterpillar, and what skill sets will be the most demand in the future?
I think this when we talk about the next 5 years, I think this idea of knowledge-based cognitive skills is definitely something that we're seeing. And even to Jim's point, that the kinds of industries that we'll succeed in may or may not have been invented yet. When we talk about our machines, for example, one of the biggest customer requirements today is information on those machines, diagnostics, understanding how they can prevent machines from going down. That's a whole area of technology and engineering and IT that starts to integrate some of those fields in a way that we hadn't seen in the past. So someone who brings not only that deep expertise in one area, but that can work across lines and collaborate with other areas. So it's a combination of those hard, deep skills that that you learn in school, with those kinds of things you learn on the job of how to work with others. Because we're finding that kind of building on ideas is becoming more and more important. So that's just one example, I think, of how we see that integration of fields continuing.
Thank you, Kelly. For Dr. Rush, the question here is, and some of this you obviously hinted at, was over the next 10 years, what will be the most significant healthcare challenge facing our region?
I think the most overall challenge is going to be figuring out how we can make health care possible to afford. You know, as we have those rising costs that we talked about, those rising utilization, That comes with higher and higher charges, which means making companies less competitive because they pay more for their healthcare costs. And we don't really know how to, and we have all the uninsured on top of that. And it's certainly not clear to me that the healthcare reform is going to, number one, either come to fruition or what it's going to look like. And so the biggest issue is how did we deliver the highest quality cost to the entire population that needs care? And I think that's a very complicated thing to try to address.
Thank you, Sarah. To Jim, again, another 10-year question, is over the next 10 years, what do you see as the most significant economic challenge for our region?
We have an industrial economic mindset in our marketplace, which is proved very valuable. So we've built large industrial complexes that, have done heavy iron manufacturing and a very broad range of supply chain activities. The mindset of folks who live here now have to get a frame that a broad range of companies are going to exist here that aren't just what we knew in manufacturing and the supply chain. They're a broader range. And I'll give you just one small example. Folks that Caterpillar are recruiting here, the medical community are recruiting here, are marrying like-kind individuals. I'm not saying that in every case, but two professionals often get married and they have a choice to live in any city that they want to live in the country. And so they may get very well hired by the medical community or by Caterpillar, and there's a trailing spouse that says, what am I going to do? And we have to have a very broad range, a diverse range of jobs in a lot of different industries that will help create a situation in which that couple will feel comfortable moving to our community and choosing this community over other competitive communities in the country and the world. And this works globally as well as it does locally. So we've talked about domestic hires, but if you look in our future, we've got about somewhere around 12 to 14% international or global population who live with us now, 2,000 Indian families, 1,800 Chinese families. That will expand in even a greater way. And this has to be a very welcoming, inclusive community that can accommodate both workers and their children that we have over the next 10 years.
We do have a few minutes here, and I'm going to jump and ask you to address this particular question, each one of you. If you could state what you see in the light of what's been presented today in terms of the needs of knowledge, talent, ability, what would be the most important thing that you would want to say about that? Now, I'll give you a little chance to mull that over, and I'll tell you where this kind of question comes from. Sometimes I pick up my grandkids from school, and one of the things I always ask them, I said, now, what's the most important thing you learned today? And I could get answers such as, the lunch was really good. But I don't think we're going to hear the lunch was really good or the breakfast was really good. Well, how would you like to begin on that, Karen? We'll go with
The most interesting observation today, and it just solidifies in my mind, is that the whole workforce, it's not just about business, it's about community, it's about education, it's really about economic development. It's really all tied together, and we all have a very important stake in this. And I guess that's kind of my take home, that it's not just about employers, it's about the whole system and our whole community really working together.
I think I'd go with that same theme that we've been talking about on continual learning, and not just learning and changing what you know or are known for, but the idea that we need people in our workforce that are passionate about what they do. And when we see someone going into engineering, it's not necessarily just because they've seen some statistics that say that engineering is a good place to go. But somewhere along the line, there was a boss, a teacher, someone who really opened the door to what that could mean to them personally, so that they are inspired by the idea of doing engineering. And that's a big call, when you have the workforce needs that we do. that someone comes to it with some passion and with some inspiration. But when we look at the challenges that we have ahead of us, it's not just showing up for work every day and doing the job. We're going to be calling on people to bring more to it. And so the more that we as leaders in the community can inspire our kids, or even those people who are looking to reinvent themselves, and there's so many of those, to inspire what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you can really give more than 100%? And that's where we all come into play, because we can open those doors for people who might not have otherwise seen that in themselves. And so I would ask that we hold ourselves to that standard and think about how we can give that direction to people and help them find those things where they can really put their full self into it.
Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Rush.
I'd like to build on that a little bit. I think maybe because I'm like Jack, I'm a grandparent, and so all 6 of my grandchildren, and their respective parents, live in Peoria. And so I think that there's a real opportunity for us to continually work to grow our own. So what we need to be doing is building a community where we identify talented young people, we provide them with the mentorship, we give them the educational opportunity, we give them the role models so that they can see themselves doing that job, whatever it is, someday in the future. And then we make this a place where they want to live. You can't ski, you can only water ski, and then only if you're dodging Asian carp. But there are a lot of very nice things about our community. It's a great place to live. And so if we do that, we really focus on training our own so that they have the skill sets that we need, and that we make our community a place where they want to live. Not only will all of your grandchildren be available for you to spoil, but you'll also be a place that others want to come to join that atmosphere. I believe that we've been much more productive with our internal training, and then some things you have to recruit outside, but the focus, I think, is on nurturing our own.
Thank you, Sarah. Jim.
It sounds a little lofty, and it sounds a little degrading, what I'm about to say, so I apologize ahead of time. The lofty part is that as folks come to our community and made choices to come here, we can't assume they know anything about where to get their shoes repaired, or you need to have multiple languages in the airport. And when I first arrived here, when people were giving me directions and they'd say, go down to where the old green barn used to be and turn left, the community has to be a friendly, welcoming community to folks that are sort of not indigenous around here. And a second part is that, when you are a 3rd or 4th generation person in our community, you tend to know about the community fairly well. At least you've been sort of involved in the family discussions about what high schools beat what other high schools, or where you can go for dinner and other things. When you have folks that are new to the community, you've got to be able to describe the community in a way that allows them to integrate, to be a part of the system. And when I look at what my son is doing right now, who has never picked up a Peoria Journal-Star, he gets all his news online, and he's got an RSS feed, a sort function. The information that's interesting to him goes to his handheld. And so we need to be able to be engaged in that form of conversation, not only for those folks that use traditional ways to learn about the communities that they get involved with, but this new generation, a very talented group of people that we're trying to recruit to our region, the way that they want to communicate as well. So the digitalization, the socialization, and the welcoming of our new community is critical to the overall success.